I'm really excited to share a chat that I had with Laura Agar Wilson of Wholeheartedly Laura, all about her audio summit that she hosted last year in 2025. We dig into the details, the data, her results, but also how it felt to put together her very first collaborative event. This is a really fun case study in what it can look like to host a simple audio summit, and Laura is a great example of exactly the right attitude to come into these kind of events. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and I will share Laura's links below if you want to learn more about her.
Well, hi Laura, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your audio summit. Before we get into like all the fun details, why don't you tell us a bit about your business, like who you are, what you do, and then we can get nerdy about the audio summit.
Fantastic. Also, I'm Laura. I have a business called Wholeheartedly Laura, and I am a business mentor for health and life coaches, more specifically, highly sensitive and heart-centered health and life coaches, because I think those people, I tend to work with those people really, really well. And I think we've got a unique set of challenges that come along with being that type of person, particularly in the coaching industry. So I help health and life coaches with all different elements of their business, everything from messaging to marketing to sales to the back end kind of organizational system stuff as well. So I'm very passionate about everything to do with helping people run really successful, basically business to consumer coaching businesses.
Lovely. So, do you want to tell us a bit about what was going on sort of right before you decided to sort of host this audio summit, before you decided to put this together, and maybe what triggered you to actually, do the do? What helped you decide to actually do this audio summit?
So I'd actually had doing some kind of summit on my kind of to-do list, if you like, or in my big, annual plans for a couple of years, and I'd not done one up until that point because for many different reasons, most of all because I lacked confidence, which I'm sure we'll circle back around to at some point. And I knew that I really wanted to do one this year, and then I saw that you were doing the micro audio summit. So I was like, this looks amazing. This looks like just the right kind of step in for me to do this. And at the time, I was, as many of us are, wanting to grow my email list. And I also had a new program that I wanted to launch as well. So knowing that I had those things that I wanted to do, it was like, right, this is the right time. And then also seeing you talking about it, I was like, actually, I've got someone here who I can work with who's going to help me get this off the ground, because I think for anything like this, it does feel like there's a lot of moving parts that need to be put into place to make it work. So it was kind of a combination of those things, basically, like knowing that I wanted the list growth, knowing that I had something to launch, the opportunity being right, knowing that there was someone, yourself, there to help with this, and also kind of seeing it in a format that felt finally actually doable for me, and also like really suitable for my audience. Like I've said, my audience are, highly sensitive, heart-centered, often neurodiverse people. And this just felt like the exact right fit at the exact right time.
I love that. I love some good timing. Tell us about the summit. Like, what was it called? What was the theme, timeline? Give us all the fun details.
Yes, so the summit was called Search and Connect, and basically I was launching a course called the Searchable Show Method. So the kind of foundation of my business, for the marketing for my business, is a piece of content that is originally a long form video, and then we turn that into a podcast. We use the video for like shorter clips, and we also have a blog post that comes from that. And it's obviously sounds really, really simple, but the way that I put it together, especially for coaches who are, a bit nervous about creating content, who don't necessarily want to be all over social media, I created a course to teach the method that I use for this. And I wanted to be able to launch that. So Search and Connect was really about helping people see how powerful non-social media based marketing platforms are. So when I was talking about these things, I was talking about YouTube, Pinterest, blogging, SEO as part of that as well, podcasting. So that was the theme going into this event, was like, okay, so how can I help people really understand that these platforms exist? Yes, you might be thinking about Instagram and Facebook and, and TikTok, but actually, especially if you want a slower pace for your marketing, if you don't feel good about social media, if there's, if you have ethical issues with social media, or it just doesn't feel good to you, because for a lot of us, it just doesn't feel good to us, and that's okay. And and actually being able to learn from some other people, some experts specifically about these platforms, so that they could really see how using these platforms could benefit their business, with a view also to kind of helping people understand. For my kind of piece of that puzzle was, how can we do all of this together in one kind of fell swoop for people who did want to do it together, but there was plenty in that audio summit for people who just wanted to look at any of these individual platforms as well.
Yeah, I think it was a really fun topic for you because it gives kind of that high level view, gets people excited, but then also is that really natural fit for the offer you were launching. So I think the theme was perfect. Can you tell us a bit about the timeline, how many days the summit went for, how long people had access, and then maybe even the timeline you had to put this whole thing together?
Yes, so it was, and obviously we had a call together, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly, but we had a call together and we kind of put together a timeline. So I think we kind of were about 6 to 8 weeks out from what I remember from the timing that I was thinking about doing it. And the summit itself, I originally wanted to run for 5 days, but I actually shortened it to 3 for a reason that I'll come into, for some of the challenges of running these summits, which is just part of it. But we ran for 3 days, and actually I think that was probably quite a nice amount of time to kind of grab people's attention, to not kind of make it too long-winded and so on. So it kind of worked out okay, I think, in the end. But it took me about, I think, from kind of like, and not a lot of, really the lead-in time is about making sure that you get the speakers involved and give people enough notice to get stuff done. It's actually, when you break it down, it's not as bigger tasks, if you like, to kind of put it together. It's just that lead-in time that you need, really, because you're having to deal with other people, which I think is the amazing thing, obviously, about running a summit and any kind of collaboration, is the fact that you are working with other people. It is, however, also the challenging thing, which I will say. So having that lead-in time basically was really helpful, and it also meant that there was no last minute kind of like, oh my goodness, what should we do? Because you could kind of see how things were going and we could make adjustments as the summit came together.
Yeah, I think that's a very common concern for people putting on their first audio summit, is like, how do you deal with all the people? So why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about some of the challenges that came up for you in putting together the actual summit?
It was really interesting, and I think because of the nature of my summit, so I was specifically looking for experts in YouTube, in Pinterest, in SEO, in blogging, and in podcasting. And actually finding experts in that in my circle, and I did do quite a lot of research, was quite challenging. And it was quite interesting that, the number of people who actually specialise in some of these areas is actually not massive. Or at least it certainly didn't appear to be, to me, the way that I was trying to research it and look for people. And then obviously not everyone is able to say yes. The people who you contact are not able to say yes. Some of the people who do say yes then aren't able to follow through, and that, and everyone's got lives and stuff going on, and that's fine. So it was making sure, I think the main challenge was making sure that I had enough balance across the summit in terms of like the experts that I felt like I was missing a little bit. So YouTube was particularly tricky to get someone to speak about YouTube, which interestingly, because you would think there'd be loads of people, and it even made me think maybe I should just be a specialist in YouTube, but I'm not quite there myself. But so finding someone to say yes who was an expert in YouTube was really quite tricky. But otherwise it was okay. And like I say, I think again, for one of the big concerns that I had, and the big kind of lack of confidence that I had, and I know we had a discussion about this when we had our call, was like, am I a big enough deal to be running this summit? Are people going to say yes? Like, all this kind of stuff. Is it going to be worth people's time? Like, how do I make sure that I make this good for people as well? And also, I think just along the challenges side of it, my son has epilepsy, or has since been diagnosed with epilepsy, and kind of right in the 2 weeks before the summit was due to go live, had a seizure, which triggered lots of stuff going on. So it was like personally a really challenging time. But in terms of managing people's expectations who would participate in the summit, because I think what we all want to do is to value the time people are also sharing for us to actually be part of it. And then obviously the request is that they share it, and you want it to be worth their while. So we had kind of like these challenges going on, and I was very honest and just said, look, like, this is what's going on with me. Like, my child's just had a seat, like, this is all being really awful kind of personally. and this is how it might impact things. But actually, it didn't really impact things massively. It was more where my headspace was at. So yeah, I think there's like those are the challenges, but absolutely workable through. And as long as I think as long as you're honest, and as you know, most people are really, you know, most people who are happy to participate in these kind of events, I think they understand that everyone's at different levels of business. I mean, obviously people have got to make decisions about where they invest the time, but I think as long as you're like open and transparent about the process for people, and you build those relationships, that like those network and style relationships with people, it can be really wonderful no matter what happens. And you can, you know, again, I shortened the summit down. You know, I kind of stepped in and did a bit extra, you know, and talked about YouTube. So there's ways of making sure that it works at the end of the day, even if you have a lot of challenges, it's still worth it.
Yeah, and I think that is really core to sort of one of the foundations I teach on a lot, which is that this is a relationship building exercise as much as it is a marketing exercise. And coming back to that, just like honest communication, keeping people in the loop, like really treating it as, again, that relationship with your speakers, I think really helps take some of the pressure off the, you know, am I big enough? Am I professional enough? Am I on top of it enough? Like we're all just people, we're all trying our best and have our best like intentions behind all these kind of collaborations. So I'm glad to hear it worked itself out and you were able to sort of keep up with everything you wanted, even when you thought maybe you couldn't.
Yes, oh no, 100%.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing a little bit about sort of how it was, the process of putting it together? Did you sort of have a team helping you? Did you do most of it yourself? Where did you find the kind of the hours went in the planning and prep process?
Yeah, so I work with a VA, so she helped me with a few of the aspects, but most of it I did myself. Obviously, I worked with you to help me kind of flesh out the idea and put together the plan, which was really, really helpful because then I knew all of the steps that I needed to take to make it happen. So it was really about, you know, I mean, in terms of like how much time it was a week, it wasn't, as I said earlier on, it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it would be. I mean, mine was a very small audio summit. I think how many speakers did I have? I think I had 9 speakers. So I know people have many, many more, and obviously then it becomes more of a task to edit and kind of put everything together. But I would say for my first experience, given that I was, you know, I had some, you know, self-confidence issues with it, shall we say, it was a really good number of people. So in terms of putting it together, like my VA supported me with things like creating the page, you know, the opt-in page for the event, for putting together the emails and things like that. But I was the one doing the reaching out to people individually and kind of managing the relationships with the speakers, which I think is really important. I really wanted to be the person who was doing that. So, you know, it all came together really, really well in the end. And it wasn't, like I say, it was surprisingly not too onerous. I think once you've done it once, I mean, this is the thing, I think the first time is always going to be new because it's all going to be completely new to you and it's going to be a learning curve. And I think you've got to be prepared for that. And certainly I learned a lot about the process of doing this and what I would do differently next time. However, it's completely worth it. As is with most things, you know, that are difficult because that's, you know, that's part of the process.
Yeah, and you definitely did kind of the star student thing that I really encourage, which is to keep that first event smaller and not bite off, you know, a 30-person big wisdom summit the very first time round. So I think you really approached it the right way to, you know, keep it small, keep it intentional, you know, use it as that pre-launch kind of mechanism and not try and pile on a bunch of other stuff into the summit itself. So I'm glad to hear that that was sort of relatively useful for you to put together. Would you mind telling us a little bit about how it went? If you have any of those stats, we'd love some numbers, like subscribers. I'd also love to hear about the launch afterwards and how that went for you as well.
Yeah, so in terms of subscribers, I had 342 people join, which I was really, really happy with, again, because it was quite a small, you know, be a relatively small summit. And what that did as well was, even with my existing list, just kind of having people involved in that event. And again, it kind of did the work that I would have needed to do in a launch anyway, which was around helping show people how powerful these platforms are and help them understand how to use them and help them understand how that can fit in for them. So did a lot of that kind of like educational piece, of helping people understand, so that when I did launch that, so I went into the launch for the Searchable Show Method kind of the week after the event. So it kind of led kind of nicely into the launch. And that launch went really, really well. I'm trying to remember how many people had joined that. So I think I had 17, which for me is, for my kind of level of business, is really, really good. And this is like a mid-ticket offer. So I ran that particular round of the course as a live round as well. And we worked through it over the summer. So it was a bit like a summer school, but it worked fantastically well. And I think it just gave that platform to be able to launch it on, made it a lot easier. And it did, as well as obviously growing my list, which I was really happy with, it also, like I say, kind of warmed up the people who were already on my list for this particular launch.
I love that. I love to hear that the launch went so well too afterwards, because that was really a big sort of goal of yours, was to prime people into that. Were there any other wins or the results you found in terms of like your confidence, your ease, relationships that you built, anything else like that you'd like to share?
I think definitely my confidence was a big one. And like I say, this wasn't the most straightforward event. Like things were challenging at times with it. Like I said, I struggled to find certain speakers. I had personal challenges going on, but I think overcoming those was really helpful. And I think when you do overcome that challenge and when you prove to yourself that you can handle it, like I was like, well, yes, this hasn't gone exactly to plan, but actually I've handled it and it's all been okay. And I don't think anyone who contributed towards that summit kind of thought, oh, she's a terrible person to work with, I'll never work with her again. I think everyone was really supportive and really encouraging. And I have got some really great relationships with people who were speakers on that, which is really lovely, because I think it is one of those things as a online business owner, it can be a lonely space. I think anything that we can do in collaboration with each other is always really great. I did forget to mention actually something else as well that we did do that was really useful, was that I extended the invitation to the speakers and the summit to also be on my show, so my podcast, YouTube, blog, and that worked really, really well. I forgot that really important point, because it was actually quite a good option in amongst it all. So it helped, again, a bit more kind of exposure for the speakers, but also it kind of, again, was a natural kind of point for people to be like, right, this is what we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks' time, come and join, come and sign up for the summit, and you'll hear more from these people. So that works super, super well too. And I think just that belief that you can put something together like that is really, really good, and the learnings from it were amazing.
I love that. So as you were putting this whole thing together, and maybe now with a bit of space behind it, was there anything that surprised you about the process that you maybe thought was going to be one way and turned out to be something completely different?
Again, I think definitely like the speakers, to be honest. And like I said, and I mean, they were amazing. I think it was mainly, I think if I was going to do another summit, I would be thinking about the topics and although I love that we did the topics that we did, and I wouldn't change that for this particular version of the summit that I did. I think if I was doing another one, I would be thinking about probably more about like, okay, so who are the people that I already know in the online business space who I'd love to talk to this, and kind of like, I mean, obviously this was done very specifically for a launch, so it was what it needed to be, but I think I would probably be thinking a bit more broadly, I think, if I did another one, because I would want to work with more speakers. And given that it seems to be, and this is just my experience and it might not be the reality of it, that the more specific you get with some of the topics, the more challenging it is to find someone who's going to kind of be able to fit that, because it was very like, I need someone who can talk about YouTube, please. I need someone who can talk about this. So I didn't have a lot of wiggle room in terms of like what various different people could have brought into that conversation. So if I was going to do it again, I would be thinking about a different topic. But it's one of those kind of things, whereas I couldn't have ran that any differently, because it was the way that it needed to be, and it was still great. But on the flip side, if I was going to do another one, I would probably be just doing something for list building, I think, and it would be broader. And I think also one of the things I've loved about the ones that you've done is I think you can get really interesting with like the themes that you go for, and I'd love to explore that a little bit more. So that would be where I would go with it next time, last time.
I think picking the right sort of theme and the right topic is it's such a nut to crack. Like it really is an art and a science, and figuring out the business goals and sort of your other aspirations and the networking and who you can actually find to speak for those topics. It is really specific and something, I think we brush over when we're thinking, I'll just host a summit. Like you need to actually get really strategic of, well, what is it for and who are we getting? What are we talking about? Like all those pieces and getting that right. It makes a big difference, as you said, to the sort of experience of putting it on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like I say, I think I wouldn't have run it any other way for that particular time. We're talking about the timing being right. I think it needed to be what it was. And I can't have thought of any other way of doing it really. But for the future, yeah, I think a broader topic would have given more opportunity to work with other people where they're, who are fantastic business owners who could have brought different perspectives in around the different topics. So yeah.
I love that. I would love to hear a little bit about how you found my approach to putting together this kind of event, how you kind of found my flavor of an audio summit and a way of strategizing this. How did it help you? Maybe did you find it different to any sort of other strategies you've seen around there? Sort of what spoke to you about working with me specifically?
Well, this is why I'm going to get really gushy.
Oh,
I mean, this would not have happened if I hadn't had that call with you. So I think that you just make it doable. Like, so it something that's quite even an audio summit, which, you can participate in audio summits, you can contribute and you can participate and be, someone who's watching it and participate, who's consuming it. But still not get like the moving parts for it. So what working with you really helped me with was clarifying the topic and the name, kind of really getting clear on like what you need to do, like what the steps are that you need to take to make this happen. I think you were the one who suggested about having them on the show actually and inviting them onto the podcast and things, which was an excellent suggestion. So it really just helped me take it from like quite a abstract concept that I really like the sound of to something where I've actually got a solid plan and I know what steps I need to take here and I'm not missing anything. That really, really helped me be able to, actually make this happen, because it just wouldn't have happened. I really genuinely, I would have found excuses not to do it, because that's that's what I've done several years in a row. It's easier when something's a challenge or something creates discomfort for us. It's easier just not to do it. But I had this kind of like little voice in my head was like, 2025 is going to be the year I'm going to do this. Finally, I've been saying it for like 3 years. I need to do it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it was one of those things that, created really good results, but mostly was about my confidence, I think, and being able to actually just kind of, take up a bit of space in the online business space. Because I think, again, like the whole thing is that you feel like, oh, I'm not enough, or my business isn't big enough or whatever. And like my business is actually more than big enough. Like I've got a really successful business. I need to stop downplaying it. And I think part of doing a summit like this is just recognizing that maybe there's a bigger, like, there's an invitation for you to step up. And I think that's what it was. And you helped me do that through, first of all, giving me a safe space to voice the concerns that I had. Because, we don't often get to be vulnerable like that and kind of say, well, I'm worried that people aren't going to like me and I haven't got a big enough email list, like all those silly things, really, to voice that and then to kind of get over that because of having the plan there. You can't hide behind your discomfort as much because you've got all the steps. So yeah.
oh, well, thank you. That's so sweet. And so lovely to hear that it helped you turn it from that abstract idea into like, okay, I know what to do. I can put, one foot in front of the other. And I think we spoke earlier too, to creating a simpler event than maybe you thought of originally. When we, see other people put on events, often we can think there's so much behind them and they become these sort of monstrosities behind the scenes. And we actually unraveled it to be something far simpler than I think you were originally even thinking of when we first sort of started brainstorming it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think that's the main point, I think, of these kind of events, these micro audio summits, is that they do need to be simple. They do need to be like low effort for everyone involved, as insofar as we can be, while still obviously getting the participants, the people who actually want to sign up and listen to all of the speakers, still making it valuable for them. And that's the balance.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, what would you say to someone who is in the shoes you were in back before we talked, considering hosting their own audio summit? What would you tell them, kind of as someone who's done it now? What's it like from the other side? What will you tell them about, taking the leap and hosting their own audio summit?
I would say absolutely 100% do it. I think especially if you feel that trepidation and that lack of self-confidence. I think when you do it, even if you think that your business is too small, even if you're brand new, whatever, like you'll find people who want to participate and collaborate with you. I think it is just about choosing the right topic where you can find those collaborators and let it be small. Like if it needs to be small, let it be really small. Like it's your first one, and allow it to be what it's going to be, and know that that's going to be enough, and that it's the first one that you're doing, and it's okay. Like it'll grow from there. So I think it's about taking the pressure off, because a lot of the pressure that we put on is on ourselves, and see it more, sometimes I think when we think, oh, well, is it worth doing this if I'm going to get less than however many subscribers on the back of it? But I think actually a better view to take of it is, it's not just about the subscribers. It's not just about the building the relationships. It's not just about, warming up your list or whatever for something that you might sell. It's about all of those things, and your confidence, and like other things that you probably haven't even thought of yet. And maybe it's actually about you stepping up yourself by actually taking that step to do something. So the things that you think it's about, it might not actually be about that, if that makes sense. So I think if you can see it from that point of view and see it as an experiment. I mean, I'm a big believer in seeing things that we do, because we get all caught up in, does this succeed or does this fail? But I don't think there's any failure when you see something as an experiment. There's only learnings, of which, as I've explained, I've learned a lot from this process, while also having really good results too. So that approach to me is the way to go.
Ah, couldn't have said it better myself. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing kind of behind the scenes of what this looked like, and sharing your experience, your perspectives. I hope people watching has found sort of this interesting, and also hopefully seeing it doesn't have to be as big and as complicated and as scary as maybe they thought. Because I think I really appreciate, we're very honest of like those trepidations you had, and it's really encouraging and lovely to hear that it turned out so well for you, and you feel so positive about these kind of results that you were able to get, even beyond the list growth, which makes me really, really happy. How can we keep in touch with you, find out more, tell us all about this lovely multi-platform show that you run, so that we can all kind of tune in? And then also where people can keep in touch with you for when you're hosting your next audio summit, so they can go and listen to that as well.
Yes, amazing. So everyone can come and find me on wholeheartedlylaura.com. And if you search for the Wholehearted Business Show anywhere, pretty much, you will find the searchable show that I run. So like I say, on YouTube, on any of your podcasting platforms, and I also share blogs over on my blog as well. So yes, come on over. I've got lots of, you go to wholeheartedlylaura.com/everything. You'll also be able to find lots of different freebies and different offers and things there that you can go and check out if you want to hear a bit more from me as well. I do occasionally show up on Instagram. I think I made it clear I wasn't a massive fan of social media, but I am on Instagram at Wholeheartedly Laura as well, if you want to come over there and connect with me on there.
Well, lovely. Thank you so much. And I really encourage anybody, particularly in the sort of coaching and wellness and sort of that space, to really check out Laura. I love her approach. I've taken many of her courses and programs myself. I think it's a really, again, gentle, thoughtful approach as well. So people who like my stuff will most likely like your stuff too.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed that little chat with Laura Agar Wilson. She is such a great example of what it looks like to pour your heart into an audio event like this, to give it your best shot, but also to roll with the punches when things happen. I hope it was really inspiring and helpful to hear her story, her experience, and her amazing results. If you'd like to host your own simple audio summit and follow the systems that really save a lot of time and stress and headaches, then I highly recommend you check out my self-paced course, Simple Audio Summit. I'll share a link for you to check that out in the show notes. And if you have any questions about hosting your own audio summit and want to have a chat before you dive into the course, feel free to email me at the email below and we'll have a chat and see if this is the right next step for you. I'll see you soon.